Welcome back to the 31 Days of Halloween. This is October 3rd, and today we discuss what it means to be goth. So I think most people have heard the word goth or gothic when referring to a person, and typically the image that comes to mind is a pouty teenager wearing all black, heavy eyeliner, big boots. But I'm going to do my best to kind of explain the idea of goth and what it means to be a goth, whether or not you call yourself that, whether other people call you that, whether you don't care what people call you, but you still feel like an affinity to things gothic. So the modern-day Goths began as a subculture sometime around the late 70s and early 80s, and they came out of the punk rock subculture itself. So at the end of the 70s, you had the punk rock movement, which is a very edgy, anti-establishment type of rock. And some of those bands kind of leaned towards a dark, spooky imagery. Now, one of those bands was called Bauhaus. And Bauhaus was led by a very tall, very slender, very striking looking young man named Peter Murphy, who had this crazy jet black hair and would wear very tight black pants and pointy boots and would dance around the stage like a vampire and sing in a deep baritone. And he kind of invented this new style. So if you ask anybody in the goth subculture, Peter Murphy is like the godfather of goth. So Bauhaus went on to influence other artists like Susie and the Banshees, who then went on to influence The Cure. And these early gothic rock bands kind of became the foundation for the goth subculture. Susie Sue started teasing her hair really huge and wearing lots of eyeliner and wearing black fishnets and all black clothing. And I feel like Peter Murphy, Susie Sue, and Robert Smith were kind of the first legends of goth that were like these iconic figures that people wanted to look like and be like, and they started doing their hair and makeup and clothing like them. And their styles were so unique and so awesome that people just wanted to be like them. And so from those early 80s death rock and gothic rock genres, goth just kept evolving and evolving. Through the 90s, then you had people like Trent Reznor and Marilyn Manson putting their own twist on it. You had industrial music coming into its own towards the late 80s and early 90s as well, with bands like Skinny Puppy and Nine Inch Nails. And now you have dozens and dozens of sub-genres of goth. You've got everything from the EBM, electronic body music, goths, to the cyber goths, to the vampire goths. And I guess the big question is, what do all of these people have in common, and why are they all called goth when really they're very different in many ways? Well, I think the answer to that is an appreciation for all things dark and macabre, and seeing the beauty in the darker side of things, not just the light. So when you're talking about the goth subculture, it really just comes down to appreciating the beauty in darkness. Now, when you look at it that way, which is the way I look at it, goths have been around forever. Since the beginning of civilization, there's always been somebody to say, hey, that's an awesome moon out there right now. Or hey, look at this beautiful spider. So if you look at literature, you have a tradition that started around the late 1700s of Gothic fiction and led to works like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein or Bram Stoker's Dracula, which, you know, have a fascination and a deep interest in things that are spooky and scary and awesome. And then looking at American pop culture, going back as far as the 1930s, you see the Universal monster films being massively successful. You see cartoonist Charles Addams creating this family that we know and love called the Addams Family, which is a huge inspiration for this show. So to me, goth is a ubiquitous human sensibility. It's something that's ever present. It's something that's existed ever since we were rational humans, you know? And I think it exists to help us appreciate that even things that scare us, even things that are dark and macabre, also have beauty in them, and if we can understand that beauty, then we can experience them without fear in perhaps a more productive way and learn something from them. So to me, that's what goth means. To me, goth doesn't mean wearing like a specific code of wardrobe. I don't care if you're wearing a white t-shirt and jeans. To me, if you appreciate darkness and you want to call yourself a goth, you are a goth. And I think everybody that watches this show on some level has an appreciation for this. And so I would call all of you guys on some level honorary goths. My fascination with the goth scene started in the early 1990s. I had just moved to California from Peru. I actually grew up in South America, and we didn't really have a goth subculture there that I knew of. So when I moved here and I discovered the goth subculture, I was immediately drawn to it. I don't know why. I was born on Halloween, maybe that has something to do with it. But for whatever reason, I felt drawn to it, and I thought it was where I belonged. So I started going to goth clubs in San Francisco and wearing eyeliner and fishnets and putting my hair up all crazy with hairspray. I fell in love with the aesthetic, I fell in love with the music, I fell in love with the people in the scene. I found a lot of the folks in the goth scene to be very sweet, sensitive, awesome people. And that might be a generalization. You know, you've got great people and terrible people in every subculture, but I think there's something about the goth subculture that attracts intelligent, sensitive people. And that's the subculture I've identified with over the years, and I still do to this day. Am I a goth? I don't know if there's a strict definition. To me, there's no strict definition. So if you want to call yourself a goth, you are a goth. I don't care what you're wearing. You can have a yellow jumpsuit on. If you appreciate Edgar Allan Poe and you like black coffee and you want to call yourself a goth, call yourself a goth. I don't care what you wear. So that's kind of a brief, jumbled history of goth and what it means to me. I'll delve into more specifics in other vlogs. I want to discuss myths surrounding goths in other episodes, but I'll save that for another time. But for now, I just want to say thanks. If you enjoy this video, give us a thumbs up. If you consider yourself a goth, comment below and let me know why. And please subscribe to the channel. We have a vlog going up every day this month. Stay tuned tomorrow for my top 5 most original Halloween costume ideas.